it 2? Is it 3 if they distance away from the players, if they distance away from the rest of the media? So what do you do? And at this point right now, we're canceled from traveling even to an away game for coverage, unless it's a coach's kid, which I have that. I have a couple of those. So at this point, we're trying to find the loopholes, because if they travel as a family, they can just get on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to find the loopholes here a little bit to where we can say traveling as a family, not traveling for school, traveling as a family, and just happen to have a camera on hand, So that's what we're looking at. The other option that we're looking at, because we transmit now through our own Roku channel and Fire Stick. So the big question as far as athletics is, if we get to play, do we cancel our attendance, but do we charge online? And if that happens, that's my kids that actually produce that, so the question is, how big can your team get? How big can they be? Now, my camera people can be far away, they're pretty separated, but the press box question, how many people in the press box? I know Oxford has already released that they're closing the press box pretty much. So media is out.
I saw that.
So, we have not made an official decision on that at this point, because our press box fills up just with people running the equipment, So at this point, he doesn't want to make a decision because he doesn't want to do that to my kids. He doesn't, because we have a really good partnership with what we do and how we actually, basically my department of kids is like sports information. We provide the pictures immediately after the result of a game. He doesn't want to get rid of that. So he's holding off completely on making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But I'm keeping an eye on it. I keep asking him, where are we going? Where are we going? And at this point, we're looking at, we're going to be traveling in a school vehicle, the largest one we got, if that's what they have to give us, so we can distance, a group of 3. So traveling in a school-owned vehicle and cover the away games, if that's how we're going to be making revenue for the football team.
That's an interesting idea. I've not heard anybody mention that.
Mm-hmm. Very few high schools have that. I know Brandon has it. I know Brandon has WSN, and Oxford has NFHS that they do, but theirs is stationary. They have cameras stationary, so they only cover home games. But we're mobile. We're able to go. So it's a huge revenue source for us. So we're hoping to keep it. So, but we don't know.
Absolutely.
But we don't know. That's the big statement. We don't know.
That applies to anything and everything, all topics, all the time.
All the time.
It's all fluid. That's the word I keep hearing. It's very fluid. Yeah. Today it's this. We'll see what tomorrow brings.
Look, we're so sick of that word that our superintendent, he did a chat, here with Oxford superintendent, which was awkward. But he said, I'm just going to be frank with you. We just don't know. We don't know. I'm not even going to use that word.
Yeah.
So he was like, I just don't know. We just don't know until we show up to work and we figure it out. And that's where we are right now. But topics. I'm thinking about, digital, for newspaper. Newspaper is probably going to go 100% digital this year. It's looking at like it. And it's looking like we're probably going to be looking at the Lit Mag as a way of providing a print something. So we're going to be looking at Lit Mag this year just to see if that's going to be doable. The way that my classroom is working right now, which I'm actually really excited about it. We are doing a hybrid schedule right now. So we are we have a red team and we have a gold team. And right now, this week, we started 2 days on for red team, and we get a faculty break tomorrow. So we have meetings and we'll go over what's working, what's not working. You know, our kids here, who's not logging in, who's not doing that. And then gold team comes Thursday and Friday. But we're supposed to keep a Google Classroom with all the materials, so we actually can move on. So my kids right now are they're using Google Meet to log into the class. So when I have yearbook, they log in during my class period, and I just leave it up in my computer, and they'll listen into the lecture and what's going on. So that's how we're working right now. And we're going to be using Google Drive a whole heck of a lot. But we're required to use Google Classroom, almost like a Blackboard, aspect. And we have to keep it live and going, no matter what class it is, in case we shut down and we have to go virtual. So my plan is I'm going to be some journalists. We're going to go back to the basics. We're going to go back to the basics. You know, we're just I'm going to pull up as much material as I can. We're going to look at design basics. We're photography basic. There's a photography section and obviously a writing section. And so we're going to do that, and we're going to cover that the first 9 weeks. And we're going to produce content online when they're ready. When that will be, I have no idea, because my group is small, very small. Yearbook, like Shumley was saying, might be a 30-page yearbook. I've already talked to my representative for sure. Might be, I went ahead and gave him the heads up, which I advise you, if you are yearbook and you haven't done that, you need to reach out right now. I told him I'm not signing a contract until I know more. And for those of you who, if you have a representative forcing you to sign a contract, I would advise against it right now. If you have a really good, relationship like I do with mine, he's completely fine with it. He doesn't want to lose me. But if your rep is not fine with that, you may want to shop around, because we are supposed to be locked in to a 2-year contract right now. But he let me out of that contract last year to reduce the number of pages for the 2019 yearbook. So we are working with each other, and he is not forcing that contract on me for this year. So again, another reason why I have stayed with him for 10 years. He's just a great guy. He's going to go, go the distance for whatever I need. But he's seeing the same trend. Every advisor is saying the same thing, just we may not have a yearbook. We may not have a yearbook. And my opinion about that is, I don't care if it is a 30-page yearbook, we're going to have a yearbook. I don't care if we have to come and drive through your house and see what you're doing and take pictures. But that's worrying people a lot right now. My staff is worried about it. And I've already made the decision and told them we're going to have one. We're going to have one no matter what it is we need to do. Now, it may turn into something like a lit mag. The lit mag may cross both staffs.
We're doing more profile type. Yeah.
So it may cross that style.
Plan? What is everybody else's thinking on this subject?
With yearbook?
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know what it's going to look like. I want it done. I want there to be a yearbook. It might be drastically smaller than what it has been in the past. We might have to do team photos, group, go back to the group photo and have just group photos of different whatevers. But I'm hoping that we have enough content with maybe some of the new protocols and things like that, that we can weave that in to the book. So
what's your deadline? What are you, a spring delivery or fall delivery?
I'm a fall delivery, so I have all year basically to get it done. The only thing is that my cover is normally due mid-October. And once they produce the covers, I'm kind of locked into a page count. So like 136 would be my top count, 120 would be my bottom count. I want to talk to my rep about that to, say, I don't mind doing a cover design and getting that to you in October, but I don't want it produced. I don't want you to have the cover sitting in storage somewhere, because if I need to go 100 pages or 50 pages, I want the cover to be able to do that. Because I just, like you, I don't know how many spreads how big the book is going to be.
Right.
Because so much of student life, when you think about student life, you've always got like pep rallies and spirit week and homecoming, all tied to sports. Then you have some clubs that are tied to sports, like touchdown clubs, Diamond Girls, band, well, band is in the sports section, but so much of that other. And then with our clubs, how many of the clubs are going to go to competition in the spring? Like your VOTEC clubs, DECA, FFA, all of those. So I'm with you. I don't know what this year is going to look like, and I don't know what we'll be able to put in the yearbook.
I do have to say, I am very excited about this year. Scares me to death. Don't get me wrong. Terrified, completely terrified. But Katrina and I had a meeting this afternoon, and I told her my worst fear is being bored. I'm not going to be bored this year. We're just not going to be bored this year now. So there's a very exciting element to what's going to happen next. And I think I may have said this to a couple of you, but I have in my newspaper class mostly ninth graders. So my newspaper is going to look a whole lot different this year, because I'm not going to send ninth graders out to do things that I would have sent juniors or seniors out to do. So we too are going to start at the beginning, kind of like you said, where we're going to start at the beginning, and we're going to have 9 weeks of a basic class, producing content online when we can. And we're going to reimagine. And I guess the good news is my ninth graders aren't going to know different. So they're going to be great. We'll figure it out. It's going to be okay. With the yearbook, I was thinking about this. My kids always want to do those weird, fun pages that, you see in the books. And we never have the pages to do that, because we have to cover all those other things. And so, we're already kind of bare bones. For a school of 2,000, we only have 176 pages. 20 of those pages are always ads, because that's what pays for the book. May not be able to have ads this year because the kids can't go out and sell them. And the community, I kind of hate to ask for money. So now we're going to have all these extra pages that we can do a whole spread. Who sits in my desk? I don't know if that was one they always wanted to do, and like kind of trace one desk and all the people that go through it every day.
Oh, I love that.
And so that may be what our yearbook is this year. It's going to be those types of spreads. I'm trying to think. The lady from Seattle, from JEA Advisors Institute, she did something on diversity. Scribner, maybe? I think that was her name. Any of you haven't watched her thing from I don't know if you did the JEA Advisors Institute, but if you did, go back and watch hers. It's something about diversity. But she's got a whole spread they did about how to say my name, and talked about, the pronunciation of your name and how nobody can ever say it right. And so they did this little, it was just kind of like a Zoom screen, and pick people holding up a sign with their name on it, and then the actual phonetic pronunciation of it. Well, I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, that's cool.
And so those are the two that I've come up with that I'm going to suggest to my kids. And those actually are things that even if we're not in school, maybe not who sits at my desk, but maybe we can trace a kid through his Zoom meetings, or we're doing Canvas.
Yeah.
But, it's not going to be boring. And that's the thing, is we finally have the opportunity, or may have the opportunity. As soon as I decide this, we're going to go back to a traditional schedule, and all the pages will be taken up again. And that's the worst case scenario. Isn't that funny? But, all the fun things that we see in all these big, huge books that we've not been able to do as much, we get to do.
It's really interesting. You know, we've always had some of those pages, but I don't feel like we've ever had enough, and we've never really covered academics enough.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think definitely we're going to take a look at more academics this year. But
Yeah.
one of the thoughts, like you know, I'm scared to cut back and then all of this just goes away and we're back on schedule. And then I'm locked into less pages, you
Yeah.
know. So my thought was, one of the things we never, you know, we've always covered games, but we've never really covered practices.
Mhm.
You know, and at Lafayette, we do have a lot of sports that have their own periods during the class day, you know. So I was thinking, you know, we're probably, as our backup, that's what we're going to do. We're going to cover a lot of practices for these sports, you know, because it's still part of their day. It's academic, you know, it's built in
Yeah.
to their day.
Can I
And
say that's probably more of what the kids are going to remember in 20 years? Like I remember I didn't play sports, but I was on academic teams and that kind of stuff. I remember our practices. I remember the drives to the meets. There's only one time that I remember what we did in the meet.
Mm.
And that was when they asked me what the nunnery was in Hamlet. And I couldn't say it because the principal and my mother were in the room.
so that's one of the things that, you know, we're thinking about. I'm thinking possibly keeping my 144 page count that I went down to for last year.
Mhm.
And if by any chance the sports that don't have that practice period don't make, we're just going to double up spreads for the other sports or the other things, you know, because band is still practicing. They're still practicing a show. You know, they're still doing that in the hopes that somebody's going to change their mind. So they're still practicing a show. So we're hoping to just say, hey, you know, can you dress out? You know, you're still practicing, but dress out and we'll still cover your pictures. I don't know, you know. That's the only thing. But I'm back to the same thing. This college readiness class that, you know, the state thought was such a great idea has knocked out my upperclassmen from both of my courses. And, you know, these are kids who didn't want to drop my class, but they had no option. And so I'm full of freshmen, but I've thrown that whole freshman thing out the windows. Freshmen have been probably some of my top producers in the past couple of years, because I tell them coming in, you get 8 weeks of training. You get 8 weeks of training, and then after that, you got to produce like you're a regular member of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them really step up and they do it, you know. And so I rely on my freshmen sometimes more than I do my sophomores and my juniors. So, and that's another thing we're gonna be looking at this year for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about my freshmen. I'm looking at it as a program builder. And
I want to get back to your question, but what were you thinking about putting as far as CDC guidelines in your manual? What were you talking about that?
well, Katrina and I were talking about this, that we want to put something in there about social distancing, wearing a mask, just kind of have it laid out. We feel, do you want to talk about this, Katrina? I don't mean to speak over you. I'm sorry. Maybe not.
No, I'm sorry. I was muted. Hold on.
I just don't want to speak for you.
No, you're fine. Oh, I need to put a light on. You could hardly see me. No, I just wanted us to cover all of our bases, and so that everything was lined out in the staff manual to cover us. Like they understood the social guidelines, the CDC guidelines.
Parents and administrators.
Yes. Yes. Because I meet with one tomorrow specifically about how we're going to do interviews, how we're going to do the show this year, because I know there's changes.
Okay. Well, my question is, and this is something that's coming up in my school, is the fact that Mississippi State Department of Health guidelines differ from the CDC. So which one would you actually go with? Which one is Tupelo going with?
So do we ask the nurse?
We are deciding to stick with what the school district has chosen to follow, and they are sticking with the Mississippi Department of Health
Okay.
on those.
What's the
So,
difference, out of curiosity?
well, the CDC has now said, it's a 10-day quarantine, whereas Mississippi is still saying 14.
Gotcha.
So there's like little bits of differences here and there as to what they're defining as, things like that. For example, the shield thing, CDC says you can wear a shield. Mississippi State saying, no, you got to have a mask, and then,
Shields.
we have both, but we
Yeah.
can't do just a shield. We have to do the mask.
Really?
So that's why, I wanted to ask you guys why you were pinpointing the CDC, because
Just a general overview statement, not a we want the CDC.
Right.
right. Okay.
It was just we feel we need health guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
try to be consistent with whatever protocols your district is adhering to. And I think that is a good thing to put in a manual.
Okay.
And then, another good thing to put in the manual, since you're talking about that, or it got me thinking, would be like not just the guidelines, but like how those guidelines are applicable in your program. Like what are going to be our rules for interviews based on these guidelines? What are going to be our protocols for touching and sanitizing all our camera equipment before and after use, those kind of things. So like I would try to think through processes and stuff that actually the kids are going to use, and then base that on, CDC or health department or whatever. But those are the things that you really want to try to get in your manual, and kind of like an overview of, so here's what all we're doing. Here's all the protocols we're going to follow. So, by taking this class, you're agreeing to follow these protocols, and you're also understanding that, you may still get sick or whatever, you're accepting some risk.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that far into it as far as equipment and how to sanitize that, because you can't just spray cameras down.
There's
So
a funny video on Facebook about someone washing their camera in the sink
yeah,
and
So-
submerging it for 10 minutes or something like that.
crazy. No, that's one of the things that when we were all discussing, which classes were going to be offered virtually, mine was actually selected not to be, because mine isn't in person. You've got to be in person. You got to be at places. So my kids were not allowed to do virtual for my class. They were not allowed to select that.
I have 2 on my newspaper staff and 1 in my yearbook staff that have selected the virtual. And newspaper, I feel like I can wrap my mind around some things they can do. Again, if we're going to spend the first 9 weeks doing basics. But yearbook, I'm still trying to figure out what that student will do. I at this point, I've come up with she's in charge of the rosters, which she can, type them up and put them in the right order and, do the last name, first name, comma, that kind of thing.
Well, are your pages web-based like most people's are now?
I hope so. We are still talking about swapping our program. You mean like the design program? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. And so there's still some design stuff that she could do.
Yeah, meaning that she could still design pages or spreads from home, or
the program that we had last year was not. It had to be Java, and they have Chromebooks, of course.
Gotcha.
And so we are switching. We're going to lose a lot of features that I'm kind of sad about. We won't be able to line things up and align them. The new program doesn't. So who knows what it's going to end up looking like. I think we may go with a zigzag pattern on purpose.
Oh my goodness.
Line things up.
Alleviate some of the
it's supposed to look like that.
Yeah.
But they can access it on their Chromebooks at home if we all go home. So
and I think that's key, you
I
know,
feel
and I
like
think there is a lot, you know, I mean, I've had to wrap my brain around how much there is that can be done remotely, that if I had my druthers, I wouldn't be doing it remotely, but you can, in a pinch, you know, do a lot of that stuff. I mean, uh, she can do design. She can, you know, edit or place photos, or she can proofread or edit stories, you know, or spreads behind somebody else. And all that would be applicable to an online newspaper or a broadcast too. You know, she may have some challenges in terms of going out and collecting content, but you could kind of work around and
if we
there's
collected it,
jobs.
then that's actually a good
Mm-hmm.
a good thought. Again, just wrapping my brain around that. Somehow there has been this block. Again, I'm not worried about it, terrified about it, but not worried.
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't have a vision for what it's going to look like. Whereas with all the rest of the classes, I can kind of see where we're going.
You know, with
newspaper,
yearbook.
you mean, or with yearbook?
With what?
With newspaper, yearbook, or journalism in general? What do you mean?
Well, newspaper, and I teach a creative writing class, which is going to do the Lit Mag now. I can see where that's going to go. I can visualize it. I can feel it. You know, I kind of have a vision. Yearbook, I know it's going to happen. I know it's there, but it's this fuzzy little light bulb shaped thing that hadn't come on yet.
Yeah.
I think, you know, with yearbook, I allowed on the download, even though it's not supposed to happen. I had 3 that are returning members that are very valuable to me, but their parents said, you're not going to school. So they are on virtual. But the rule is that you had to be a returning member in order to do that. And it could only be yearbook because they know the way of the land, you know?
Yeah.
But like I said, you know, they're eager to be in the room with us because they know what that's like. They're eager to be in the room with us. So,
and if you do the synchrony that you were talking about with Google Meet.
Yeah. And I was late turning it on today, and they were texting the other students like, is she not going to let us come today? Like, they were just like, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm late. I was late to class. And they were blowing up the phones, you know, because I hadn't turned Google Meet in. So they're anxious to be there, and this is a way for them to have their face and their ears in the room. And like I said, it was really neat today because my chief editor-in-chief, she's on gold days, you know, and I said, I really need you to dial in today and come in because, you know, we got to go over a couple of things. And they did a get to know each other activity on Google Classroom today, you know, that whole Blackboard, hey, tell me about yourself, and respond to 2 people. Well, while they were responding, they were at home reading, and then all of a sudden my editor was like, who's Chelsea? I want to see your face. Your answer is really cool. Come over here. You know, and she did. She came over, and, you know, they looked. So it was
have to
really
share that activity.
Yeah, you know, but it was so good, and it gave me hope. You know, it gave me a little hope that if we do have to, you know, stay on hybrid, if we have to go home or something, I know these kids are excited to be there and they want to do the work. And including them in the room and not isolating them off for days is really the way to go, at least in my room, for sure. And they were asking questions, you know, they were out to the side when I was on the other end. They were like, hey, tell her I have a question. And I could hear them, you know, but that's what I did. I just set my computer up facing the whole entire room, and they were in. So, and, you know, Google Classroom is really neat now because they have a class code for Google Meet that you don't have to create a new one each time. You know, you just log into your Google Classroom and go for the meeting. So that's what we're using it. And today was a success, and it gave me hope for sure. And
awesome.
You know, those kids that are at home are my writers, they're my designers. So, and we're web-based for our yearbook. So I know that they can handle that. But they want to be in the discussions about theme. They want to be in the discussion about colors and fonts and all that. So, But you guys haven't gone back yet, right? No.
No, we were supposed to start tomorrow, but they moved us to Monday.
They
And
just keep moving it. Just keep moving
yeah.
it.
And have you all started?
Yes, we started yesterday. What's today? Tuesday?
Mhm.
We started yesterday.
How'd that go?
It is really going really well. Like I said, our students have been super polite about everything and willing to be flexible, which
Mhm.
is going to be the key to all of this. Showing grace and compassion towards each other and being flexible about what's happening.
Mhm.
Because, it is what it is. And tomorrow it will be what it will be, and it will be different. So, one thing, my school is also doing Google Classroom. I've been using Google Classroom, so it's not that big of a deal for me, but I do like the Google Meet function. It's got the
Mhm.
perma link. They just come in. One thing that we're going to probably do starting next week, because right now we have the hybrid schedule, and our virtual students have a hybrid schedule as well. They can be A-day students or B-day students. I think next week we're looking at moving all the virtual kids to A-days so that we're only doing virtual 2 days a week instead of all 4, simply because keeping up with attendance and trying to track who's coming in on which days virtually is a mental juggernaut for the teacher to remember, oh, you're supposed to be there, you're not. And
Are you synchronous where they log in during your class time?
yes, we are doing synchronous. They like Batista, because I really cannot, I don't know how to say your first name.
That's okay. Everybody calls me Batista. Everybody
Okay.
does. It's really okay.
You need the sign like the lady from Seattle. I'll just say my name.
Nobody
Yeah.
calls me by my first name.
But so we're doing the hybrid, and Fridays is everybody's at home day, and that's the teacher day to do meetings and office hours and things like that. So we do Monday, Wednesday, and then Tuesday, Thursday with our students. But now, as far as
School Friday, or are you at home Friday?
I have to go to school on Friday, and we were told if we went all virtual, if everybody gets sent home, then the teachers will come to the classroom and teach from their desks.
Yeah.
So
That's the same for us. We would still go to school and clock in so we can get paid. But my thing, I didn't require my kids, since this was new. I've only done it 2 days now, but I didn't require attendance for them in Google Meet today. I didn't, and I can't because they're hybrid, and it wasn't their day or anything like that. But like I said, the school gives me a lot of allowances in my my class. I bust my tail to kind of be a brown noser and do whatever they want, so I can have freedom for my kids. And so I play the game, and they just get it done. Just don't abuse the privilege. And so attendance wise is crazy. The way our Chromebooks are set up, if the kids are doing virtual, they have to be on the school issue Chromebooks because it's going to time what they're doing.
Wow.
Something, or I don't really understand the technology, but it's really fancy. But basically they monitor their Chromebook, and the state is requiring 240 minutes of education. So if they're signing into their Google, for Google Meet, for me, that counts. So they were at school for however long, and not everybody signed in today. I didn't require, it was not doing, one signed in and she got her instructions and logged off and went and did something else. It's going to be very fluid for me at this point. But that's what the Chromebooks are doing. They're logging in and tracking their time. So
Yeah, we're asynchronous all the way, and they have to complete the work, and we are taking attendance based on the engagement with the work.
Hmm?
We're using Canvas, so we have our modules, and we are required to have enough work that would add up to the 240 minutes a day.
Yeah.
So I have to provide 75 minutes worth of work each day, and then on Fridays I will look and see, did they complete their 5 days worth of work,
Hmm.
and then they will be counted present each day. And if they didn't complete one of the days, they're absent. But Thursday they can have done none of it. It's all done Friday. They were present all week.
See, we're requiring attendance every day for middle school, and they put out a schedule, a sample schedule for each grade. And the lower, they get more teacher time, through Google Meet, and it's a more set schedule. But for middle and high school, they have a Google Classroom where they have to go in and answer a question for attendance every day. But then if their teacher was requiring them to be there for that period, they have to log in and they will take attendance. If it's one of those. Now, if it's one of the Edgenuity classes that they're taking, obviously they could then we monitor progress. But if we have something kind of like my class where I've got to see your face and I have to have a dialogue with you and, catch up with you, they are requiring those students to be there for that period. So we'll see. All right, so here's the other topic I had. Money. Money is a huge issue for me this year. And I know, Shemley, you were talking about it, you're kind of afraid to go talk to some of these businesses. And I have not been told that my kids cannot sell ads. Have you? Is that what you've been told yet?
No, I've gotten zero actual instruction as far as any of this goes. But I feel like I'm kind of under the radar also.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to talk to the principal tomorrow, so we will probably get some more feedback. But my thing is just, I feel for the local businesses, and I know our businesses, our school, our size, in a town this size, the same businesses are hit by the same, different groups all the time. And so I think what I'm going to do is we are going to sell ads. We're going to do it virtually. I'm going to try to figure out, because again, my ninth graders aren't going to be able to drive to businesses. Or most likely won't be able to. So we're going to try to do it electronically via email, reach out to them in the mail, things like that, write letters. And I am going to lower our ad prices, and offer bundles and discounts and that kind of stuff. If you buy a big ad, we'll put it in the paper, the website, and the yearbook. That kind of stuff. I had 3 extra pages in the yearbook last year that didn't get sold, ad pages, and I didn't have content. So I actually sent an email to all the churches and said, I know everyone's struggling with how to support our seniors. Here's a way. I'll offer you a discounted ad price. And I sold out very quickly. And so I feel like things like that, we may do a more recognition ads as opposed to business ads. But we also, I'm fortunate, we're going to start with about a $3,000 surplus, which is about our ad sales. We usually sell about that much. So if I don't sell any ads, I think I'm going to be okay.
Well, here's something that happened to me, and I want to know if it's happening to anybody, and I'm sure maybe not, but towards the end of last year, when school was officially canceled, I had a business call wanting to retract and get a refund. So I know, and I told them, no, it was for newspaper, actually. They had, I think it was 2 more issues where their ad would appear, and they wanted to know what our plan was regarding that money. So we actually had to respond, and I don't have the money. I mean, once it's in the school, it's gone. So we have to now honor that ad money sales from last year somehow this year, and if we're going to go online, it's going to have to move online, obviously, but that's something. And they were the only business but that had asked for it, but if I offer it to them, I now have to offer it to the others as well, because we had 2 more papers that we were supposed to publish. So has anybody run into that at all?
That happened to us a couple of years ago when I took over the newspaper. They had not fulfilled the contract, and I had to. I think they only sold to 2 businesses, so I had to give that space to them. But that again was 2 years ago, and we've not sold newspaper ads since then.
Okay.
This year we will have to do something, or we won't have a website. I don't know that we're going to print.
Yeah.
But the good news is the website ads should be fairly easy, and it won't take up page space. So if you can just say, hey, we're going to give you a website ad instead of the newspaper ad, that might be, and you could do one of the rolling. Or do you guys have a snow site, or are you with?
Gosh, no. Who can afford that? No, we did WordPress, and what I was thinking about doing this year is just buying a new template and working it a little bit and removing some of the ads that they have on there and paying for that instead. Oh, look, my kids fell asleep. But no, I couldn't sell enough for a snow ad, the website, as at that point, maybe we could.
It's $400 a year for us. And personally, I think it's worth every penny. Although I did find out yesterday that apparently the board has to approve us using it. We've been using it for 7 years. And we were with whatever company they had before they became Snow.
Yeah.
So we've been with them for at least 12 years, but suddenly the board has to approve them.
Is it because of cost?
I have no idea, because it's the same cost.
Probably just change some rule about recurring payments or vendors or something like that.
Yeah, I think the person who processes it is new this year. So
yeah,
I'm a little bit nervous about that. But yeah, I personally think it's worth the money, and they actually they have a new program now called Snow Ads, where they actually get advertisers. We don't have control over it, but because it is school newspapers online, I'm going to do a little more research, but they process it and they keep half the money and give us the other half. So as long as it's not, some random unschool safe company.
Yeah, that's what you really need to be careful with, how they're going to select those ads, because
but that's why I haven't done it yet.
If it's my conservative environment, anything that would pop up there,
we had the bail bondsman ad last year, so
The fact that it is school newspapers online, there should at least be some level of vetting, like they get it.
They started this last year, and so I kind of was waiting to see from the other. So many JEA people use this site.
Yeah.
And I was kind of waiting to see if there have been any problems, but I haven't
heard any fireworks or any blowback from them putting any liquor store ads or anything like that on there. But if you can get a chunk of revenue coming back in for basically doing nothing, then that's
what I'm thinking. And hopefully, it may not pay for the whole thing, but maybe it'll pay for part of it.
Okay, I'm going to take a look at it again. I think, I have close to that. So if we sell a couple more ads, I have close to that, and then we can do that.
The first year, there is a $250 setup fee, so you do need to think about that.
Again, who can afford this?
Yeah, we were grandfathered into it, so we didn't have to pay that setup fee, because when we did it, I can't remember what they were before that. It was it's part of the Reynolds.
Yeah.
website, and I
High
can't think
school journalism.org.
yeah. Yeah, it was part of that, and then Snow kind of bought them out, and
Yeah.
so
We had
were,
a free membership for a year,
Mm.
and it was great. I loved it. And then they sent me the bill, and then
Well, I mean, it depends on how you just kind of got to budget for it, you know, and you got to put some effort into generating revenue for it, right? I mean, I don't know what you pay for print costs for your newspaper, but like at Starkville, to print, you know, a 12 or 16 page, 1,000 copy newspaper was going to be 250, 350, like somewhere around in there. And so we had to, you know, if we're going to do 6 issues, well, that meant our annual budget, you know, was $1,200 to $1,500, and we needed to raise $1,200 to $1,500 in ads to be able to print
right.
all our issues. Well, 650 even for the first year is half of that cost if you're doing online instead of print. So it just kind of got to, but you're going to have to generate revenue, you know, that money's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
So, but if you
But
can
I
get
will
ad
say-
sales, yeah.
yeah, and I am not a coder. I do not understand how to build websites and that kind of stuff. I can manipulate websites and use them, but we have utilized their support system and all of that. That's why we're with
Right.
them, because I don't think I could do a WordPress site. Now maybe I could, but and the things that we can do, and the story carousels and the widgets and all of that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know those words until Snow.
Definitely some cool
Yeah.
storytelling abilities.
Yeah.
That kind of grandfathered in, you know, without you having to develop them yourself on there.
Well, we'll look into it. I saw some pretty sophisticated templates for WordPress that gave me the thought of going that direction, and how you set up your students to be contributors to the website, that they can publish under their own name and their own link. I really liked it. I mean, that's how we did it, and we were still able to do that, you know. So some of the kids had their own following, so it wasn't just the newspaper posting the story. It was an actual, you know, here's the student journalist posting under their name, these are their stories, and you could go click on everything they wrote, you know, based on their upload history, you know. I really liked it. I thought it was pretty much where we were at that point, you know, and it could be that Snow is something we go into, but
yeah, Snow has all of those capabilities. I mean, Snow is WordPress based.
Yeah.
It is a WordPress template or series of templates. The back end is kind of organized and geared specifically to 10 to 20 or 30 different students working on it. So it's kind of simplified. And then, like Sherry said, the other benefit is you're instead of working without a net, you've got a tech support and people there to help you with whatever you're trying to do or see or visualize.
It's for every level of the tech knowledgeability. You know, you've got someone who can do the coding, they can do stuff in there. If you've got people like me who just need to click a button, you got that. And
it's not for everybody. I mean, if you or your students have that kind of manipulating knowledge, you know, web design knowledge and stuff, you may not need to pay that for that support, you know, or to pay that for that template, you know, but certainly available for those that do.
Before I really figured it out, I had actually tried to work with our computer. We actually have a coding class, and I was going to see if they would work with me to develop the program. So that's an option too, is if, you know, you can't afford this, then, you know, see if one of the other classes will collaborate. I'm all about some collaboration.
Yes, me too. I survive on that for
Me
sure.
Me
Like I'm about to ask, would you collaborate and share what you come up as far as your broadcasting guidelines for your health guidelines? Because I wanted to bring back, we're I'm struggling with my numbers, so I can't bring my broadcast back like we were. But we were going to do a mixture. So our newspaper, multimedia newspaper. But now I'm really having to like, oh my goodness, wait, no, you're right. Social distancing. How do we do this interview? So would love for you to share those as I try to come up my own. I would love to see what you've got on that.
Yeah, that's fine. You have some interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we could, as a industry, come up with the standards, that would be awesome. And then just manipulate them however we needed to for our individual things. But I was kind of hoping somebody had already done that.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing. I'm sure somebody has. I really, really had not even thought about it. That's how far off I was. I really had not.
Katrina.
Yeah, Katrina, we talked earlier about some ideas that you were talking about revamping things or how you were going to handle broadcast. What all you got going on?
Well, I'll know more after I meet with my administrator tomorrow, just what guidelines we're going to fall in. I've got a backup plan and then a backup plan to the backup plan. So I was fully prepared for them to say, hey, your kids can't leave your classroom this year.
Yeah.
And so have a plan for that. But now my first plan is because we have to have a seating chart for our students so they know if there's an outbreak where that child was the whole time in the class. So I thought I would have a sheet where if the nurse came in and they needed to know, then it would be official documentation, who went on that interview, which room, and what time. That's my first plan. The second plan is that we usually don't have homework. It's usually covering an event, but they'll just have to get in touch with the kids they need to interview after class hours and do Zoom and Skype. We did a remote broadcast show, and that's what the kids are working on now. Is we've got a welcome back show that the kids have done remotely. So it's just the shows are completely different, but they're welcoming back the students and kind of explaining the changes that they have to make, the changes the students can expect.
Okay, continue. Everything. Go ahead. Talk everything. Go ahead. Continue.
No, that's all I have. Do you have any? That's all I have for now. I mean, so we're having some technical issues. So I'm excited about their intro. Their intro is a Zoom call, but we'll see how that works out because when we were trying to do the Zoom, I couldn't get all the little people on the screen. And so then we had to switch to Google Meet. So we'll see. We're having some technical issues, but it was good just to see their faces. And so they were trying to wave at each other, and they're like, well, which square am I in? Wave down, wave up. They are excited to come back. I do have a couple of students for distance learning. And so I'm like, well, you're just a distance learning correspondent. And so she was one of the stories it's about to air. Her story was on distance learning, the transitions. I'm on both already. Distance learning, transitions, and how are they going to keep students safe who are just coming on campus for sports. So that's her story that she's working on. And she's doing it from distance learning, doing it from home. So.
That's all. Have you figured it out?
Did they just use their phones, or what kind of equipment are they using for remote stuff?
So I've not seen their stuff yet because my email was shut down. So I still need to see their stuff. So one student has sent me all of her video. I have not had a chance to look at it. So part of it's from a phone. I don't know. I'll be able to tell you more when the show is done. The show was supposed to have aired today, but that's beyond our control because I could not see the parts of the show. So.
Gotcha.
So I have a question.
Oh, and Shelby's story was edited on iMovie.
Okay. So have you figured out how to video a Zoom call yet like that? To where, kind of like Good News, whatever, what was it, that dude did, where you could do the basically the production of both videos at once. No,
that's on my list. I keep saying that I embrace technology, just how I'm going to learn how to edit on iMovie so that I can teach it to the distant learner. So like one of the things I was doing today was Googling how do you edit on iMovie. So only my seasoned students are working on the show because we didn't have enough time to teach the new ones how to write, how to do an interview. We said, we just want you in the intro.
I'm really curious because that's one of the things that, you know, when all of these talk shows went to, you know, quarantine and we're doing their shows from home, I was like, how are they doing that? How are they producing the two screens and switching back? And that's what I'm intrigued in.
What we did this spring is the kids were on iMovie. So one of my students, she interviewed an infectious disease specialist and she used Zoom and that was recorded, but then she edited on iMovie and sent me her whole entire story. And so I had the editing equipment. So like all I had to do was drop their stories in. They had produced it, but I still had to upload it, if that makes sense, because at that point, none of the kids had the cameras. They didn't have the computers. All they had was their phone. So
that's so neat. Okay,
I had
cool.
a planning meeting with we had a planning meeting with the returning staff, and I asked them, you know, what are your top 5 concerns? And so they listed their top 5 concerns. I'm like, okay, you can't cover everything in the first show, narrow it down. And so from there, that's how they pick their stories. And then we even had changes with that because once they said the seniors really only take the classes you're supposed to take, there was a senior who was originally anchoring and a senior who originally had the main story who's no longer in my class. And so then I had to go back and they said, okay, things have changed. And so another student said, hey, I'll anchor. And then the main story changed to another main story, if that makes sense, because we didn't have that student anymore. So
wow.
Lots of changes just within a week.
Good. Keep saying that.
I'm adding it to the cuss words.
Got to put a nickel in the jar every time I say it.
New normal. New normal.
Yes, new normal.
Yeah.
They know it's different. They know it's going to look different, but the goal is for them to have more fun this year than ever. Just because I feel like they're covering this, I need this class to be really fun. Now they're going to learn, but I need this class to be more fun. So they're all getting lemons on the first day. Like ours, I told Mitch only about this. Our saying this year is no lemons. We're just making lemonade. And so like I already went, like, so my distant learners, they're going to get in the mail that saying with the paper lemon, and the kids are going to get lemon stuff in class.
This makes me want to zoom into your class so bad. Like, can we zoom into your class?
I'm just excited to see the kids, but like we're working on this remote show. Like it was supposed to air today. Like it was beyond my control. I could not get into my computer, so because they were emailing me the stuff, and then the school said, "Oh, just have the kids send you their pieces on your personal email." And I said, "But I can't open my personal email on a school computer. Like that's blocked." And they're like, "Oh yeah." Hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll let you know.
Oh, so cool. I think Anne was going to say something.
The kids were understanding. I said, you know, we're just, they were understanding. And so, like, with the anchor, I forgot to tell her, hey, if this is your script, make sure you, like, memorize it. But, you know, it is what it is. It's going to be jump cut. Like, it's going to jump cut. And I'm like, oh, she forgot. There's no video in between. Like, I saw her part. Like, your anchoring looked great. And it did. It did. We're going to figure out. So I'm going to ask her if there's something that she has that she can do from her phone so we can help cover those jump cuts. Because usually we don't have jump cuts in the show. But this one may be an exception.
Mm-hmm.
So fun. Oh, I can't even think about broadcasting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, I got to run. I got to jump on another call. So this has been fabulous. I can't wait till next month.
I know. It's been good.
I'll see you guys. Bye.
Anne, were you going to jump in there and say something?
Yes, I was going to say that I vote we make the phrase new normal a cuss word, and I think that should be 25 cents in the swear word jar.
I agree.
Not a nickel. I think it should be a quarter.
I
There's
agree with it.
several of those terms that, it's like I beat myself on the wrist with a ruler every time I use one in an email, that they're just so cliche by now, but
Well, could we not turn that, the new phrases that everybody's so sick of already coming out of this pandemic, into a spread, into
that
a
could
story?
absolutely
That would be fun.
should be.
So I know you guys haven't had much contact with your students, but mine, really interesting, is they're sick of covering this. Like, they had to devote so much to it in the spring that they're sick of covering this. And I don't like, but that's the story. That's what's going on. And they're just like, we're just sick of it. And we just want to be normal. Like I said, they just want to go back to normal, not the new normal. They just want to go back, and they don't want to cover this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a little bit of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, can we not cover this anymore? Can we move on to something else? And that's just week 1. They're over it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, bless them.
Is anybody else getting that pushback?
Not so much right now. I'm kind of interested, and I think it'll be kind of a interesting conversation to have with students.
Mm-hmm.
How much does coverage change after the election?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're doing this whole run up to the election. So I don't know. Every election year we've had a big outbreak of something. There was it the bird flu or the swine flu 4 years ago?
Maybe.
Or at some point.
I don't remember whether that was an election year or not. Maybe it was.
It's been documented. There's an outbreak of something every election year. It's baffling but it really is. There was N1H1 swine flu 1 year, bird flu.
Well, and see, we don't even remember those really, or the fact that they happened during an election year. We know this is happening, of course, because it's brand new and it is what it is, but we only know about it because there's so much coverage.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost its own 24-hour news cycle.
Well, when I started with my kids, because these freshmen, they don't look at the news, they don't, subscribe to the news and everything. So that's my first assignment, is where do you go to read the news, and when we pulled up, just a general news website, you had to scroll twice to get to something that was not COVID related. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, they're teenagers, they're like, there's other stuff in our lives going on besides this. And there is. And that's what's going to be interesting to cover, because according to them, there's other things going on in their life that's not COVID related.
Yeah. So tell us what those are, and let's cover them. And obviously there's going to have to be a certain amount of COVID coverage, because that is like, it's impacted every facet of our lives and our existence. But to their point, there are so many other things that they can be covering, I mean, even just from a national level. I mean, there's the election, which would be a huge story in any election year cycle. Then there's the Black Lives Matter and social justice movements that have taken root this school year or this summer. And so how are those playing out in local communities? How are those playing out with schools? I think there's all kinds of different issues that they can cover. And like I said, that's just pulling straight from the national headlines off the top of my head. There's so much other stuff going on locally that they can pull from. And I think that's kind of the message that I would take is, that like continuing to report over and over and over on COVID has ruined blank for me or for some other people is a tired story. It's still accurate because COVID continues to ruin new things in my life every day. But there are other ways to cover COVID without taking that slant. And so, I mean, I had written down, going back to what you guys were talking about with your yearbook coverage, even if sports don't happen, or even if clubs don't happen or whatever, all of that stuff still exists, and it is still newsworthy that it didn't happen. And so, I mean, if you need to cut pages budget wise, then that's one thing, but I don't know that cutting pages content wise is something that you may end up needing to do, because
Right.
I mean, if I've got a football spread and football didn't happen, then I can absolutely do a spread about the season that wasn't, how that affected those players or those coaches, those seniors that didn't get to have their senior season, or those freshmen or sophomores who were, slated to start on their first year under the lights, or the cheerleaders or band who were ready for the prime time and then didn't get to do it. Telling the stories of all the people that are affected, I think, is going to be the journalistic angle that you can take. And then you're just, then you're finding visuals of, so Johnny didn't get to play kicker this fall. So what is Johnny doing instead? Well, he's throwing the ball in the backyard with his dad. There's a visual. Or he's playing video games. There's a visual, or he's walking around in an empty field. There's a visual. You can come up with all kinds of creative visual elements for things that didn't happen, the same way we cover things that did happen. So choir could still get a spread. Band can still get a spread. Softball, tennis, everybody. We can still tell the stories of our school in a way that is unique to this year. I think that's the other thing that I would be telling my kids is that, I mean, obviously what we do and the stories we tell are important every year, but this is the year. These are the stories. This is the one that we want to get right. All in a tune, what this was like, how we survived it, what we did, the Zoom crazy things that we did, what it was like having to go virtual and come back and go virtual and come back, how many students, what was the record for most virtual comeback? Like, find me that student and tell me that story so that I can remember it 30 years from now. I think that whether it's yearbook or newspaper or website or broadcast or lit mag or whatever, I think the message that I would be sharing to my kids is like, this is prime time. We've been handed the ball in the fourth quarter, and like everybody is going to read or watch or experience the stories that we tell if we do them right forever. And so kind of an amped up version of the speech you would normally give about this time every year about their importance in the school fabric of things and that kind of stuff. But this year in particular, I mean, I can only imagine like 20 years from now, if I was in high school during this time, and 20 years from now, I'm like trying to explain what my senior year was like to my daughter. And like, now look, pulling out the yearbook and say, look, everybody had to wear masks. Look at us in the halls. We didn't have football like you have, or we didn't have, like you got a homecoming queen. We weren't able to have those ceremonies. Here's what it looked like. And it may mean like capturing a bunch of other stories around town, with locals or businesses, or how those things are being affected. Because, the yearbook is as much the story of the town they grew up in, their community that they grew up in, as it is them. So those are kind of some of the things that I thought of as y'all were, talking. Tell the stories of the people instead of so much we all know what the virus is and how, and so like you can do brief little recaps or info things that tell that story at some point through there. But the story for all media, all student media, is going to be about people, and like people who are uniquely affected or are uniquely overcoming being affected by different things this school year.
I like that. That's I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
Run with it.
I'm taking it. I am. I really am. I mean, I've got a group of I'm not really worried about yearbook. I've got such a fabulous group of seniors right now that have been with me that have really changed this program around. You know, you've seen the rise of that program, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing. You know, I'm finding kids that are so passionate about it. You know, they're really buying in. And this group of seniors right now, you know, they came in. They didn't even come in. They actually came to my house to finish last year's yearbook. They finished it July 10th. They came to my house. And I said, you know, don't tell anybody we're here. Check your temperature before you come, but we've got to get this done. And, you know, they were looking like, I cannot make it to my senior year and not have a book. It just cannot happen. So,
Yeah.
you know, that right there made me sure that we were going to have a book. We were going to have something,
Good.
maybe a magazine instead of a book.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah,
But
like
they were going to have
you may,
something.
you may end up having to make some concessions budget-wise, although I know you don't
Right.
want to. But so I wouldn't start with the phase of, well, we don't have as much to tell, so what can we get this down to, or how cheaply can we do this? You know, I'd say, how can we find enough money to make this happen? Because I think
Right.
a normal-sized book will be something that people would reflect on and treasure even more than a normal year.
Well, oddly enough, and I don't know if this is true for Anne or not, but we saw a surge in sales at the end, you know, and I've had more people worried about, is it in? Is it in? And in fact, it's coming in so late, but, you know, they're anxious to see, did you finish this yearbook? How did it look? Because our middle school ended up, and I still don't have the full story on that one, you know, kind of hush-hush situation, but the middle school was taking orders for the yearbook and then all of a sudden announced that there was not going to be a yearbook right there at the end. So the middle school did not have a yearbook. It was the only school that did not have one. And, you know, that kind of amped parents up and like, wait, you know, what do you mean we can't have a yearbook? So we've already had that in the district. And they're starting to question whether or not it's going to happen, if it was going to happen to the high school as well. So,
Well,
Yeah,
I did have quite a few parents purchase online. My overall numbers were down because I think so many parents in my community were impacted by the shutdown as far as job loss. There wasn't the extra money to purchase a book. Or there may have been, but they weren't certain how long the shutdown was going to last. So they chose to save that money for something else. Yeah. And I don't blame them. I don't fault them. Now, I did order just a few extras, and I have already sold well over half of those. Yeah, because people are like, oh, you got a yearbook. And I was like, yes, I don't promise anything about proofreading and errors or name misspellings. I said, at this point, I promise you, I did my best to proofread everything, but I didn't have anybody to go to say, is this child's name spelled right? Or who is this kid?
Right.
Because that's what we do the last 2 weeks of school. We go through and double check names, and we make sure we have everybody named. And so that means we're going in other classrooms and study hall trying to, you know, it's like, hey, do you know the freshmen? Do you know the football players or the basketball players or the this or the that? Come here, tell me, who is this one? And I made no guarantees about that. There were some spreads that ended up not having a whole lot of captioning, not much in the way of storytelling. You know, the student went home without a computer and with no internet access because they live on the backside of nowhere in the middle of nowhere. And I had no clue what the story was. They couldn't get it to me. And so I was like, okie dokie, we're just going to make our photos bigger. And I know that's RJ and that's, yeah. I named who I could, but there were a couple of spreads that, and they are what they are. You know, it is what it is at this point. But I'm hoping we can build some buzz for this year's yearbook based on last year's. And the fact that I think it turned out really kind of cool and cute because it was the kind of spin the diary of a wimpy kid idea. And I like the way it turned out. You know, there are a couple of spreads that I look at and I go, eh, you know, I'm not real happy with that. But at this point, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we had everything submitted on time. So our delivery date was not delayed.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations on
Yeah,
that, because
good
we
job.
definitely did not. I did. I held off big
Yeah.
time.
Well,
Big time.
well, like I said, with so many of the kids, and you know, this is hush hush, with so many of the kids not having internet service,
Mm-hmm.
there was one person who did, and that one person did a lot of the book, and she may or may not be on this call, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't going to not finish the book. I wasn't going to let it go undone because the seniors lost so many other things. I wasn't going to let the yearbook be one of those things.
Right.
So when everybody else was attending conference calls and Zooms for their paychecks, I was making sure photos were on pages and stories were written and captions were done and things like that. I wouldn't be afraid to say I probably did 15 spreads.
Well, and what you're talking about, I think, is, I mean, something that I would stress for this year is to my community is, hey, we're having a yearbook. And, you know, we don't know what the school year is going to look like or what the situation will be in May or what they will get to do or what they won't get to do, but they're going to have a yearbook. And so buy in now, you know, start a push for sales because this may be the most lasting artifact that your child has from this school year, you know, and we know, you know, I've got my staff and we're committed to this and it's going to be outstanding. And here's our theme and here's what all the things that we're planning to do. And here's, you know, develop a whole marketing thing around it. I think this would be the year to be as transparent and not secretive about what's going to be in the yearbook as possible to try to get people to buy into getting it, you know.
You know, I think that's for us, our theme, it's starting to develop like this is the year of defiance. Like, I don't care if you shut me down. We're still going to go for it. You know, and that's what it's leading towards with my kids, especially with these 3 girls. I mean, they're just like, you're not going to tell me no. You're not going to tell me that we're not going to do this. You're not going to tell me. And that was their attitude all summer. You know, because I've always given my kids that speech about not, you know, if you give me the option choosing between you and finishing this book on time and finishing the spread and then I design it, then it's no longer your book. You can no longer say it's your book. It's my book because I had to touch it, you know. And I know always my name's at the end of the contract, so I'm responsible for it. But again, I have a really good relationship with my publisher, and I said, hey, what's the longest we can go to give these kids a chance to finish this book? And I took it. I'm responsible. It's going to come in late, but these kids deserve the chance. They deserved a chance to finish the book, and that gave them a fire for sure to go and move on, because they're like, well, what if we don't have a senior year? It's like, you're going to have a senior year. We just don't know what it's going to look like. But now they're defiant. Now that they've stepped foot in class in that school, which is the other thing, which kind of pity the other schools that haven't really opened yet because their kids are just like, they're in limbo out there. But now that the kids have come back to school and have had a moment to settle, they're just like, let's just get on with it. Let's go.
Well, and I think there's a real opportunity here for all of us, you know, and broadcast with Katrina and everybody else. I think there's a real opportunity here to kind of take a step back and reimagine what scholastic media could look like, not what it always has looked like. You know, if half your school is working remotely, then you know, maybe you don't need a 10 or a 15-minute weekly broadcast. Maybe you need a 2-minute, you know, or 3-minute mini show. You know, if we're not going to do a print publication and we want to start an online publication, now's the time. because that's where everybody is anyway. And people are clamoring. I know your students are clamoring for facts, for somebody that knows somebody that knows what the heck is going on in any given area, you know. And so there's lots of opportunities out there for your students to be a news source for their classmates across the board. And so, I mean, if you can develop a web presence, you know, then why does that always have to just be written stories? You know, that your website that you develop could also be where you house all of your video content. And who says that newspaper reporters can't be producing video content in the same classroom that they're writing stories? Why can't we do photo galleries featuring photos from our yearbook staff? You know, I mean, there's a real opportunity here for some outside the box thinking and some integrated multimedia ways for what stories do we want to tell? What mediums can we tell them best in right now? And who is our audience that we're trying to tell them to, and where is our audience? I would argue your audience is online and on social media channels. And so you got to have a presence if you're going to serve your student audience, no matter whether you're a yearbook, lit mag, newspaper broadcast, whatever. If you're going to serve your student audience, then you got to go wherever they are and put your content in front of their eyeballs, right? So if that means, you know, having a robust Twitter feed or a TikTok channel where we do reporting, or a Snapchat channel where we do reporting, whatever. I mean, we just got to really think outside the box. But I think the fact that our old way of doing things has sort of been stopped dead in its tracks gives us a kind of a unique opportunity right now to like look at your kids. Once you got them fired up about being the student voice and the student storytellers during this historic time, you know, you can look at your kids and say, okay, so how do we do this? How do we communicate effectively with your classmates? And then let's retro engineer things from there. You know, I just think it's a real opportunity, and I think we'll all be better off if we view it that way instead of looking at the limitations, obviously, that so many of them exist.
Right. Well, it's definitely, I think it's a renaissance for Mississippi, and I think it's going to be a renaissance for our student media in this state, because if they do it right, they're going to give us the technology to work with. So,
well, and think about it. Like, I mean, last fall, you know, you would have your kids would have mostly been limited to doing interviews in person or around their building or whatever. They would have mostly sold ads door to door, right? Now they can do all of that virtually. There's no reason they can't interview somebody via Zoom. There's no or on the phone. There's no reason they can't sell ads on the phone or via Zoom or you know, mock up some designs and email them over to different businesses. There's so much that can be done that we weren't doing because we didn't have to. You can now, I mean, the people, Katrina, your broadcast students can just as easily interview somebody who is running a business in Denver, Colorado right now, as they can interview somebody who is running a business in Tupelo. So how awesome is that? Like, it's not that we couldn't do that last year. It's just that we didn't think about it or have to. Well, now if everybody can be everywhere at any time, you know, what all kind of barriers have just been removed from your students and their reporting? Self-imposed barriers mostly, but think about how much freer things are if we kind of expand our concept of what's possible right now with all the technology and the tools that now a lot of people are comfortable with, you know.
Right. And I mean, that's the key there. People are comfortable with it. You know, everybody is now used to working from home. It's like, okay,
Right.
sure, well, I'll jump on a Zoom, you know.
Right.
and that'll be fine. So
Yeah, I mean, we
I
had the
think so.
technology to do these roundtables last year. I didn't know how to do this. And so we weren't doing it. But now, because we kind of have, things have been disrupted, it's like, well, okay, how could we get together? How could we create some community? How could we share ideas? And everybody is, fairly used to the video conferencing kind of medium and norms by now. And so now this is a whole new avenue that's opened up for us.
Good. I have renewed self-confidence a little
Good.
bit after this one for sure. I mean, I know I was supposed to lead it, but I needed to get
Great.
some. I got some great ideas, so that was really good. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it, and hopefully we won't be as restricted, but we just have to find that loophole. So.
Well, and thanks for everybody for coming on and spending part of your evening with us. I think this was really, I learned a lot about all the stuff that you guys are dealing with, and just how different it looks from district to district, which I know, but it's interesting to hear how it's kind of playing out and affecting different staffs in different places. So
are we going to wait another month to do this? Because, it was a good idea, but now so many people are delayed.
Yeah.
Should we have another one? I don't know.
True. I'm more than willing. What do y'all think?
I'm willing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we could maybe do another one, in a week or two. Whatever
as
you
more
think.
schools come in and they're, having these admin meetings and everything like that. And, I'll just say, hey, as one of the schools that has opened first, this is what I could tell you in retrospect. But, as everybody else is coming in, because I can guarantee you these admins are not taking the time to think about this class.
Mm-hmm.
They're not thinking about this. So a lot of these advisors are going to have that conversations as they're coming into work.
Yeah. Well, we could do one every week if y'all want to. I mean, I have nothing but time.
Okay.
Can you share some of that? Can you share some of that?
Sitting here.
I don't know how I do campus. I am like stressed.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I've got during the day, I've got plenty of work, and I got to teach my own classes, and I've got other stuff to do. But it's not like I'm traveling anywhere. It's not like I'm going anywhere. You can only watch so much Netflix. So I'll get on here and talk talk shop with you guys once a week if you want to.
As I try to watch Netflix this summer, and I couldn't even make it through one episode. It's been that long since I've watched TV. I don't know how to do it anymore.
You're not missing it.
No. That's what it looks like. It's like everybody's been talking about this, and it's such a hype. And I'm like, I can't watch this. I've got work to do. I've got to go graduate. Got to graduate.
Why don't y'all think about it and decide whether you'd maybe like to meet again next Tuesday night or the next, if you'd rather do it next week or 2 weeks from now, and let me know, and then we can publicize it on the listserv and get at least one more of these roundtables to get us started in the month of August before we then maybe get into a routine of once a month on a different topic every starting at 7.
I think if you post this recording and they'll see what we talked about, it's going to prompt a lot of questions that they really hadn't thought about, like I did during this whole thing with broadcasting. And I think they'll probably definitely want to schedule another one. And we could set that. So I'm willing if I can set the time. I'll set the time right, because I had this for tomorrow at 5. I don't know why.
Well, who knows what day it is anyway,
I know. I was like, why is it on my calendar for Wednesday? Why is he talking today?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep. It's Tuesdays.
I don't know what day of the week it is, nor do I really know what month it is. I mean, the calendar says August, but it feels like April 148th to me instead of August 10th, or 11th. Longest April I can ever remember.
It really is. It was the longest spring break ever imaginable.
Yeah. Well, anyway, well, let's stop it right there then, and I'll stop the recording, and then we can all reconvene here pretty quick. But thanks for showing up and sharing all your insights with us tonight, guys.
Yes, awesome. Katrina, I'm rooting for you.